Hi, my name is Cole Feth, and this is my response to prompt number 7 in my 307 literacy class. Prompt number 7 asked us to consider one of a few videos. I chose video 2 on innovating the classroom experience. The prompt asked us to consider 4 questions upon viewing the video. Question number 1, who/what produced the media text? What is the producer's relationship to education? Based on your own thinking, why do you think this producer demonstrates an investment in future classrooms? So the individual here is a proponent of changing the paradigm of education. I would view him as a sort of professional consultant to education, and his views were to incorporate a higher level of technology and really differentiate and individualize education for the students. So how does he portray the future classroom? So he argues that yes, it's going to be very individualized and differentiated. So it would look kind of like students are basically performing tasks all online, and from my understanding, it kind of looked like they were going to be using AI, artificial intelligence, and results on these mini assessments to uh, decide on future lessons and where these students need to focus more on their education. So if they perform poorly on, let's say, assessment X, they were going to receive more instruction on what would inform assessment X the following class. So how is that different from current educational paradigms? Well, current educational paradigms are pretty standardized as far as there is one teacher and one lesson, with maybe a few outliers of students who are receiving different types of lessons. So that's radically different than what we're seeing right now. It kind of releases the locus of control from the teacher and flips it to student-centered learning. So each student is getting what they need at that certain point in time, rather than more of a blanket approach where all students are kind of covered in one major lesson. So what's my critical take on the video? There is some stuff that's missing, and I've included a few things coming up that I would like to argue have been missed or overlooked in the video provided. So yeah, this is just a summary of what we saw. That the paradigm of school, what we think of is a teacher, 30 kids in an 800-foot classroom. This person is arguing for a paradigm shift on how we do school in that classroom. It says we've had a lot of technology for the last 20 years, but it's remained in the theory portion of education and not in the practice. So he wants to move it from the theory into each classroom and into practice. But he still thinks learning should be done in a school setting, and he still sees it on a class or individualized class um, type of lesson. What I mean by that is you're going to do LA, and then you're going to do social, and then you're going to do science, and then you're going to do math. Whereas a lot of research is actually arguing for interdisciplinary learning, and that's what people are looking for, employers are looking for. That's where STEM comes from. So this article I've included here talks about more technology. Could that equal less learning? At some points, yes. So one major problem with technology in the classroom is it de-incentivizes student learning. What they mean by this is, yes, students have a higher enthusiasm to learn, but technology is also highly distractive, and it can decrease student participation in class activities. So imagine you have a lesson in social, and you ask students to Google something on the fur trade. They are bombarded by just a plethora of information on the fur trade, and all of this noise is actually distracting them from their original intent of the micro lesson on the fur trade. So they argue that using technology can kind of look like edutainment instead of education. So as teachers, we have to be very sensitive about that. Something that isn't exactly mentioned in the video. Another one talks about potential benefits and drawbacks of multimedia in an English language class. So they talk about the cognitive load theory. For those of you who are not initiated with the cognitive load theory, basically is you can only take in so much stimulus at once and make sense of it. So what they're saying is if you are introducing a new topic through technology, there's too much stimulus there for you to take it all in. And with this too much of a cognitive load, you're not going to actually intake the lesson and understand it because there's too much distraction in the lesson through the technology. They do say, however, technology is really good at when you have it directed to solve a problem. So when it's confined into the medium where you're directly answering questions that are limited in scope so that you're not distracted by all of the noise that can be online through technology, it's very effective. Another plus for tech is that it caters to visual learners and all other types of learners who are not been satisfactorily addressed during the blackboard or whiteboard lessons of our past. So I included this Forbes article on how millennials are making work from home work. So basically what the article talks about is that a lot of millennials are trying to start to work from home because they're working harder, they're working more hours, and they're being compensated less for it on average than any generation before them. So they feel like they can't achieve a balanced life. They're wasting 2 days out of their month just commuting to work. So that's work, but how could we apply this to school? I would argue that does school even have to be done in a classroom, or is there a better way to do this? Some other videos have argued that the exploratory learning facilitated through technology could be the way that we could move ahead through this, but it's not considered in the video. A couple other things that I would like you to consider about this video. The use of technology. The use of technology in education. Is it a Eurocentric cultural value? I just want to make sure that we're including Indigenous perspectives and all other minorities that may or may not have either access to the technology or place the same cultural value on that technology and learning. Economic factors. This technology and implementing all of this into school is going to cost a lot of money. Are we as a province prepared to commit all of these resources into technology? We don't have the answer to that. It does address that teachers need to embrace a new paradigm of teaching and learning. We have to give up some control and place it on the students and into the technology so that the lesson is more individualized and students get what they need right now. Infrastructure, kind of with the economic factors, there's a lot of infrastructure that would be required either in the school or the others, wherever the learning setting would be, that we don't have right now, and we have to get it. Feasibility of timelines. Some of the videos are arguing that in 2050, all of these classrooms are going to look radically different. 30 years for this kind of radical change, I feel, is not a conservative estimation of time, and we need to give ourselves more time to radically change this system. And narrow-mindedness, the paradigm that school needs to be done in a school room or a school classroom in a unit or in a one class setting where you're doing LA in block 1, you're doing math in block 2, science in block 3. I would argue that interdisciplinary approaches are the way of the future in education. And this could be facilitated through technology, but that's not something that was addressed in the video. Thank you for listening to my response.